you're introduced to this world on the events of A-Day. San Francisco is devastated. The Avengers are to blame. They disband, and there's bickering amongst them. And you get that set up, and you can journey through the progression through particular characters that progress the story forward to see how the Avengers fare. And as you go through the story, depending on where you are in the narrative, you unlock certain characters, and then you can now go off on a tangent with those characters or with your own choice of characters, and play these missions that are all tied to pushing this story forward. And you can do so by yourself, or you can do so with groups of 4. And then you can rejoin the narrative and push that story forward as well. You can also choose to say, you know what, I've got the setup, I really just want to play with my friends, and I can run off and just play in that world with 4 of my friends as the Avengers of our choice. Or I can say, you know what, I'm just going to go straight down the narrative and just play only the story, not do any missions, just go through all the gating story in a linear fashion. Or I can play the entire thing, both single player and co-op by myself, and enjoy the experience of the Avengers.
So there's a lot of choice.
Simple.
That's a great thing. That's what it boils down to, is that there's a lot of choice. So
it's a hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Thank you for that. The second most popular question we're getting is, why aren't these the MCU characters?
Well, we wanted to, and we set out to create an original Avengers story, right? So we wanted our characters to feel like they belong in our world, they're part of our story, their choices, even their uniforms are all based on our story. They're at the peak, they make this awful, hubristic mistake, and then they fall, and now we get to build them up. So we casted them differently, we chose them differently, we drew from the Marvel comic books, along with our friends and our guy Marvel themselves, to get the best solution for this story.
Great. Okay, next question. How many more superheroes will be added to the game post-launch? I know we can't get specific.
Vince?
We can't get specific.
Can't be specific, but we definitely intend to, at regular intervals, release new superheroes, new regions for free, no additional cost. And yeah, I mean, we're excited. Like Marvel's Avengers roster is obviously, the potential for it is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And we're such huge fans, coming through 80 years of history to find those characters. It's been fun.
Yeah, and the story, the multiplayer story in that world, it's so big, it's so vast, it's escalating threats. You get to, team up with your friends and fight, and defend Earth from, escalating or big disasters. So it allows, such a big world allows for many characters to be introduced, and yeah, we have quite the roster to choose from.
Wonderful, that's super exciting. All right, so we also had questions about regions, and again, I'm telling everybody that they're not allowed to get specific, but can you talk a little bit about the diversity of regions that we're going to be pulling from?
I mean, you saw the trailer, right? There's a lot of, there's a city. I can't go any further than that. Vince, you take this one.
I mean, the Avengers it's a global team, right? They take missions, the threats that escalate all over the world. We're about finding, like, what are the areas that we want to go to that are diverse, that are as different as possible, that provide us different gameplay elements, different ways to use the team's very unique traversal. Like, every character on the team moves in such a different way that we want to have, we don't have enough variety in our environments to really make use of the character's abilities. So
great, awesome. Okay. This one, can you control the characters freely, or are you limited in movement? And a lot of these questions were very specific about seeing Iron Man fly on the Golden Gate Bridge. So can you talk a little bit more about freedom of movement in the game?
Yeah, well, I mean, in that particular segment, as part of what Sean said earlier, the single player campaign focus, which are more specifically linear sequences that are very designed in sort of a classic crystal fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But virtually, we also have totally different areas which are much more open, that sort of allow the characters the full freedom of movement, the full, like I said before, the full freedom to use all of their unique traversal mechanics. At that point, yeah, it's
yeah, and it is also in the campaign, right? It is in the single player campaign as well. On these missions, you'll be able to fly around and have that freedom. Specifically in that little opening sequence, you know, you still can fly around. Of course, you're limited to the bridge at this point, but you're still flying around. But in the missions, you're fully engaged.
It's a very specific objective at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, laying the foundation for the world and the narrative and so on. Great. Another question: does gear affect the stats of your character?
we have both cosmetic stuff for the characters, which is costumes, cosmetic attire that you can customize fully. That does not affect the character's gameplay attribute stuff, and then we also have a pretty robust gear and progression system that does affect the character's gameplay. It was really, really important for us to separate those two because we wanted players to be able to look the way they wanted, but also play the way they wanted. So
that's great. I know fans are going to be very excited about that.
Yeah, you don't pay to win.
Yes. Can you play as any character anytime in single player, or will there be specific chapters so you get pushed to play each character? So it's again kind of giving a little bit more context on that story campaign.
Yeah, I mean the character you're playing is based on the narrative, and it's the best character to push that narrative forward. So yes, if you were to just go through the story in a linear fashion, if you wanted to, you will be playing as the story dictates. However, you still can go off and do these tangents as your chosen character, whoever your favorite hero is, and level that hero up and do cool missions with that hero. You could say, hey, I don't want to play this mission. I'm tired of playing Hulk. I want to play as Black Widow. I can go off there and I can play all these missions as Black Widow and learn and feel what it's like to be Widow in those missions. And then come back to the main narrative, and then the narrative dictates what player you play as.
Very cool. All right, this is another one that I know we're not allowed to get too specific on, but it's just fun to acknowledge it. So in the 8A trailer, there was a small clip of what looks like Iron Man in space. Will this be an explorable region or just featured in the linear campaign?
We can't get into the details of that, but he is in space, and you're right, and it is awesome. So stay tuned.
It is awesome. That we can vouch for that. Okay, will there be free roam? So there's still a little bit of confusion of like the free roaming, the traversal through and so on in these larger mission-based spaces.
Yeah, you can roam freely in these larger mission bases.
Great. Will there be vehicles?
Are we?
So my thought on that, not that anybody asked me.
I mean, our characters have built-in traversal mechanics that are so unique to them that they move the way you'd expect them to move. They move through the environment using whatever fits the character best. So let's leave it at that.
Yeah, the empowered traversal is super cool in the game. Like each character moves so uniquely through the space.
But it would be cool to see, the Hulk drive a car. It'd be awesome.
I don't even know if he would fit in one. All right, let's see. I think that's pretty much it for
Perfect
today.
one to end on. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah,
Hold
Hulk
my
in a
card,
car.
yeah.
I think it'll be awesome.
We'll save that one for tomorrow. Tune back in tomorrow. We have one more question, but we're saving it for tomorrow. So everybody tune back in tomorrow, and we will sum up our last day at E3 with one more. What do we have? We have Bill and Noah tomorrow?
Yep, Bill Noah.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you day 3 of E3. Bye-bye.